Hello, my name is Ethan, and I am a hunter. Not the kind that stalks deer or wild game, but something far more sinister. I hunt humans, and I have been doing it for longer than I can remember. It all started when I was a child, growing up in a small town in rural Oregon. I was always different from the other kids, preferring to spend my time alone in the woods rather than playing with friends. It was in those woods that I first discovered my true nature. I remember the day vividly. I was walking along a narrow trail, the sun filtering through the dense canopy of trees above me, when I heard a rustling in the bushes. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest, as a figure emerged from the undergrowth. It was a man, disheveled and disoriented, his clothes torn and his face scratched and bleeding. He stumbled towards me, his eyes wide with fear, babbling incoherently about being lost and needing help. I should have been afraid, but instead I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I smiled at the man, my voice soft and soothing, and offered to lead him back to the trail. As we walked deeper into the woods, the man's fear seemed to dissipate, replaced by a sense of relief and gratitude. He talked about his life, his family, his dreams for the future. I listened intently, nodding and smiling, all the while leading him further and further away from civilization. It was only when we reached a small clearing, far from any hiking trails or roads, that the man realized something was wrong. He turned to me, his eyes widening in horror as he saw the twisted grin on my face. He tried to run, but it was too late. I was upon him in an instant, my hands wrapping around his throat, squeezing the life from his body. As he lay there, gasping for air, I felt a rush of power and euphoria unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was in that moment that I knew I had found my true calling. From that day forward, I dedicated myself to the hunt. I would spend my days roaming the forests and mountains of Oregon, searching for unwary hikers and campers to lure into my trap. Sometimes, I would pose as a friendly stranger, offering directions or assistance to those who seemed lost or in need. Other times, I would stalk my prey from a distance, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Over the years, I honed my skills and perfected my techniques. I learned how to cover my tracks, how to dispose of bodies so they would never be found. I became a ghost, a phantom that haunted the wilderness, leaving nothing but whispered rumors and half-remembered nightmares in my wake. But even as I reveled in my dark desires, I knew that I could not continue forever. The authorities were growing more and more suspicious, and the missing persons cases were piling up. It was only a matter of time before they caught on to my trail. So, I decided to expand my hunting grounds. I traveled across the country, visiting national parks and forests in every state, always on the lookout for new victims to satisfy my insatiable hunger. It was in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee that I met my match. I had been tracking a young couple for days, watching them as they hiked deeper and deeper into the wilderness. They were perfect specimens, strong and healthy, with a love for adventure that would make them easy prey. But as I prepared to make my move, I sensed something was wrong. The forest around me seemed to grow darker, the shadows lengthening and twisting in unnatural ways. And then I saw her. She emerged from the trees like a wraith, her skin pale and translucent, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She was beautiful, in a terrible, haunting way, and I knew instantly that she was like me. She approached me, her movements fluid and graceful, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. She spoke in a language I did not understand, her voice like the whisper of wind through leaves, and yet I understood her perfectly. She told me that she had been watching me, admiring my skill and cunning. She said that I was special, that I had a gift that few possessed. And then she made me an offer. Join her, she said, and together we could be unstoppable. We could hunt not just humans, but other creatures as well. Creatures that existed in the shadows and the spaces between worlds. We could become something more than human, something greater and more terrible than anything that had ever walked the earth. I was tempted. I cannot lie. The thought of such power, such freedom, was intoxicating, but something held me back. Perhaps it was a last shred of humanity, a faint glimmer of the person I had once been. Or perhaps it was simply fear, the realization that I was in the presence of something far beyond my understanding. In the end, I chose to run. I turned and fled, leaving the couple and the creature behind, my heart pounding in my chest as I raced through the forest. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached, until I collapsed in a heap on the forest floor, gasping for air. But even as I lay there, I knew that I could never truly escape. The hunger, the thirst for blood and terror would always be with me, driving me onwards, pushing me to the brink of madness. And so I continue my hunt, moving from place to place, always searching for new victims, new thrills. I am a monster, a creature of the night, and I will never stop until I am finally caught or consumed by the darkness that dwells within me. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between the screams and the blood, I think back to that day in the Great Smoky Mountains. I think of the creature in the forest, and I wonder what might have been. I wonder if I made the right choice, or if I simply delayed the inevitable. For in the end, we are all monsters, all killers in our own way. Some of us just hide it better than others. As I sit here, in the dingy motel room that has become my latest temporary home, I can't help but reflect on the choices that have led me to this point. The peeling wallpaper and the stale smell of cigarette smoke are a far cry from the lush forests and mountain trails that have been my hunting grounds for so long. But even here, in the heart of the city, I can feel the hunger gnawing at me, the need to feel the life drain from a fresh victim. It's a craving that never truly goes away, no matter how many times I try to satisfy it. I think back to my last kill, a young woman I met in a seedy bar on the outskirts of town. She was pretty, in a worn-down sort of way, with dark circles under her eyes and a sadness that seemed to cling to her like a second skin. I bought her a drink, listened to her story of a life gone wrong, of dreams that had withered and died on the vine. She was easy prey, looking for someone to save her from the mess she had made of her life. I played the part of the knight in shining armor, offering her a way out, a chance at a fresh start. She followed me willingly, never suspecting the monster that lurked beneath my charming exterior. I took her to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, a place where the screams would go unheard and the blood would wash away with the rain. She struggled at first, fighting against the inevitable, but in the end, she succumbed, just like all the others. As I stood over her lifeless body, I felt a sense of power and control that was almost intoxicating. But it was fleeting, as it always was, and soon the emptiness crept back in, the knowledge that no matter how many lives I took, it would never be enough. I disposed of the body quickly, efficiently, the way I have done countless times before. I know the drill by now, the best ways to cover my tracks and avoid detection. But even as I go through the motions, I can feel a sense of unease growing within me. Something is different this time, a whisper in the back of my mind that I can't quite shake. I try to ignore it, to focus on the task at hand, but it persists, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. And then I see her, standing at the edge of the warehouse, her pale skin glowing in the moonlight. It's the creature from the forest, the one who offered me a chance at something greater, something beyond the petty concerns of mortal men. She smiles at me, a wicked, knowing grin that sends shivers down my spine. "You can't run from what you are," she says, her voice like honey and venom all at once. "Sooner or later, you'll come to me, and we'll be together, forever." I try to run, to flee from the truth of her words, but my feet are rooted to the ground, my body frozen in place. She approaches me, her hand outstretched, and I feel a pull towards her that I can't resist. And then I wake up, gasping for air, my heart pounding in my chest. It was just a dream, a nightmare born of too many sleepless nights and too much blood on my hands. But even as I try to shake off the lingering tendrils of the dream, I know that it's more than just a figment of my imagination. The creature is real, and she's out there, waiting for me, calling to me in the darkness. I know that I can't run forever, that someday I'll have to face the monster within me, the one that hungers for death and destruction. But for now, I push those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the hunt, on the thrill of the kill. I am a predator, a creature of the shadows, and I will not rest until I have satisfied my dark desires. The world may never understand me, may never know the depths of my depravity, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is the hunt, the blood, and the knowledge that I am alive, truly alive, in a way that few will ever understand. And so I go on, a ghost in the night, a monster in the flesh, until the day when the darkness finally claims me for its own. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, as I continue my relentless pursuit of prey across the country. I move from city to city, state to state, always one step ahead of the law, always searching for the next thrill, the next victim to satisfy my insatiable hunger. But even as I revel in my dark deeds, I can feel a growing sense of unease, a nagging feeling that something is not quite right. The dreams of the creature from the forest become more frequent, more vivid, until I can no longer tell where reality ends and nightmare begins. I try to push the thoughts aside, to focus on the hunt, but it becomes increasingly difficult. I find myself making mistakes, leaving clues behind, taking risks that I would never have taken before. And then, one night, as I am stalking my latest victim through the streets of a nameless city, I hear a voice that stops me dead in my tracks. It is the voice of the creature, the one who has haunted my dreams for so long. "Come to me," she whispers, her voice like a siren's song. "Come to me, and let us be one, forever." I try to resist, to turn away, but the pull is too strong. I find myself walking towards her, drawn like a moth to a flame, unable to stop myself. She leads me to a place I have never been before, a place that seems to exist outside of time and space. It is a world of shadows and mist, of twisted trees and whispering winds. And there, in the heart of the darkness, I finally come face to face with the truth of what I am. I am not just a killer, a monster in human form. I am something else entirely, something that belongs to the shadows and the spaces between worlds. The creature reaches out to me, her hand as cold as ice, and I feel a rush of power and knowledge that threatens to overwhelm me. I see the truth of the universe, the endless cycle of life and death, the eternal dance of predator and prey. And I understand, finally, why I have been chosen, why I have been given this dark gift. I am a part of something greater, something that has existed since the dawn of time, and will continue to exist long after the world of men has crumbled to dust. I take the creature's hand, and together we step into the shadows, leaving the world of the living behind. I am no longer Ethan, the hunter of men. I am something else, something more, a creature of the night and the darkness. As we move through the mists, I can hear the screams of my past victims, the echoes of their terror and pain, but I feel no remorse, no regret. I know now that their lives were meaningless, that they were nothing more than stepping stones on my path to true power. And as I surrender myself to the darkness, I feel a sense of peace and belonging that I have never known before. I am home, truly home, in a way that I never could have imagined. The world will never know what became of me, the monster who stalked the shadows and hunted the innocent. But I will live on, in the whispers and the nightmares, in the dark corners of the human soul. For I am the hunter, the predator, the creature of the night. And I will never stop, never rest, until the end of time itself.